Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Man Talk podcast. It's podcast number 45, and I'm here with my friend Isaac. Isaac, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jacob. It's an honor.
Yeah, and now we get to get your introduction going, and so that way the audience knows how we got to be friends so long ago. How did this all start, anyway?
That's a good question. It turns out I'm fairly younger than you are, but we have a mutual friend, and that would be my brother,
Yeah.
Jacob. And yeah, Jacob and my brother went to high school together, and Jacob would come over to my family's house, and I would see him occasionally, and yeah, great had a great time. But circumstances, life happens. We part ways. I went to college. Jacob does his thing, college, career. But it turns out our mutual friend got married, and me and Jacob got reacquainted at the wedding. And he told me about this podcast, and I was like, I'd be happy to join. But as far as myself, I after high school, I went to community college for 3 years, and then I went to Biola University. And if you don't know where that is, that's in La Mirada, California. It's at Los Angeles County, very on the edge of Orange County, if that gives you an idea. I studied computer science at Biola University, and I graduated in 2018. Um, 6 months later, I got a job at the Walt Disney Company, Disneyland Resort, as a stage technician. I had some, uh, oddly enough, computer science and entertainment. You'd think they wouldn't go together, but they do. Turns out they need programmers, and I had entertainment and programming experience. So I helped program some of um, their audio systems. They have a whole network of audio, among other things, a whole network of a lot of things, but audio was one of them. And then they need programmers to manage that. But as you know, Disney laid off a lot of workers um, in the beginning of 2020, and so I was there for a year, and I looked around for work and had a variety of jobs, but I eventually landed back at Biola. Never planned to go back to Biola again, but here I am back at Biola. I am now technically my title is the supervisor of technical operations for the School of Cinema and Media Arts. So basically, I'm glorified IT for that specific department. It's a film school, and that's how my partial entertainment skills are similar to film, and they have some similarities. And then also my technical background in computer science. So that's what I'm doing now. Yeah.
Yeah, Bible Institute of Los Angeles. Just learned that last night.
Yes, I need to actually say that because yeah, it's an acronym. But commonly referred to as Biola, but the Bible Institute of Los Angeles.
I kid you not.
1908. Yeah. hmm
I didn't even know what that meant until last night. It took till last night.
Oh,
Someone said it, and I was at a
yeah.
I was eating dinner with them, and they said it, and I go, "That makes so much sense." I thought it was someone's last
Yes.
name or something.
Yeah, you'd think it would be a last name, but no, it's actually founded by Lyman Stewart, the founder of 76, actually, the oil company. I think it was I don't remember what the oil company was when he first started, but 76 is what it led to. 76 fuel. But Lyman Stewart founded it in 1908 with the help of a few other people. Um, but yeah, yeah, long legacy. It actually eventually it started in downtown Los Angeles on the corner of 6th and Hope. I hope I got that correct. And uh, they had some problems with the building after an earthquake, and they eventually moved to La Mirada, which is about 45 minutes, depending on traffic, from downtown Los Angeles, but still in Los Angeles County. So I guess we can still call it Bible Institute of Los Angeles.
Close enough.
Yeah. So
Yeah, that's cool how you were able to come like circle back all the way through. Um, I kind of did that with Davis, coming back from the oil fields in 2015, and then went back to the town of Davis for 3 years. Still working at the same place. There's this pharmaceutical plant over in Rancho Cordova I was working at for about 6 years. But for 3 of those years, I was in Davis.
nice. I yeah, I actually really love talking about your past experiences. I got to know, well, I hadn't seen you in so long, and I got to get a little bit more familiar with what you were doing. I think you told me you're a Kim E, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay, good. Which stands for chemical engineer,
Yep.
and I think that's fascinating. Um, very, very smart. And yeah, I think that's really cool. My brain can can think about a lot, but there's some limitations, I know. So I think that's really, really cool that you can do that.
It
A lot of
tested me in ways that I hope
interesting.
to never be tested in again.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I mean, I signed up for it. So, I mean, we all volunteered to pay money to work hard and then eventually get the certification, which we did. I mean, I think the class started at like 120 people, eventually ended up at around 80, which is about right. You tend to lose about that much.
That's yeah, that's intense. That's very intense.
Yeah, and the class sizes got
Um,
bigger. So they were like, "Oh, you're the biggest class we ever had," and then every year afterward, "Oh, you're the biggest class that we ever had." So it's still our thunder. Okay.
Now, was it the biggest class at the start of the semester that they've ever had, or the biggest class at the end of the semester that they've ever had?
Eventually, either.
Because, oh, really? So both metrics scaled up each year.
Yeah, so it's not like they had like
Interesting.
160 people go in and still have 80. It's nah, they had
Yeah,
instead it maybe 160 went in and then 120 made it.
I
And
see.
and I think
That'd be
120 was around 2018. Around 2018 they had about 120 people graduate as well, and it's just that was what we started with mine, so they really had more people getting into it.
very cool. Well, I'm sure you've told some of your stories before on the podcast, so we don't have to get into that. But I find them fascinating. Um, yeah, especially the guy that lost his phone. That was hilarious. Um,
Oh, no, I didn't
anyway.
tell that story on this
Oh,
podcast.
you've got to tell that story.
Okay.
It's such a great story.
Yeah, okay. So what Isaac's referring to is in the oil fields. This is like when the iPhone 6 Plus came out. You guys remember when the big phone was becoming a thing? Yeah, and they're starting to charge
Money, money.
more.
Yeah.
And so this is the first time iPhone finally is trying to make a bigger phone because people were complaining about them getting too small. So my friend Troy, he buys a 6 Plus iPhone. And this is somewhere around the end of 2014, start of 2015, somewhere around that time frame. And in in the oil fields, if you're doing something called fracking, there's sand that needs to be discharged into the process. Well, his job was to even it out. So he's evening out the sand hopper, but here's the problem: he's got his phone in his collar pocket. It's like right next to his chest, and
Mhm.
that there's usually a little flap you can close so that way nothing falls out. Well, it's open, and he leans over, and then the phone, ever so subtly, just falls into the sand pile. So that's not a big deal at first because at least the sand hopper is going to stay around the same level height. That's the idea. So that way it's steady state. Problem is this is at the end of the frac job. So the job is you start seeing the hopper decrease because we want to use up all the sand. Well, he can't get to the phone in time. So he frantically tries to get his shovel that he used to be using to keep the hopper even. Now he's trying to use it to save his phone from certain deaths. So he gets the shovel and he's trying to get it, and he almost had it, but it gets knocked onto the grate. And he takes one more attempt to try and get the phone into his possession, but instead he knocks it into the grate, which means it's going straight into the oil field process. So pretty much gone forever. The analogy would be like when Emperor Palpatine fell down the crazy shaft on the Death Star and just kind of blew up. That's
Yes.
probably the same thing
Yes.
that happened to his iPhone 6 Plus. and
Yes.
he comes in to the control room to announce to everybody. So I lost my phone, and then told us this whole tale of how he lost it, why he lost it, and he's like, I had it for 3 days and I lost it. And this
Wow.
is one of the
Wow.
first times they had phone insurance. I think this is the first time they
Uh,
started bringing that up. So he had it. He bought phone insurance because he
that's
thought
good.
thought about this ahead of time. So he wasn't that off, but nonetheless, yeah, he lost his iPhone 6 Plus, and then the supervisor, oh, they just wouldn't, you wouldn't hear the end of it. Oh, we
I'm
got
sure.
Wi-Fi signals 8,000 feet down hole now, and just they would not let it go. So yeah, poor Troy.
Wow.
He got another phone though.
That's interesting. I wonder if he actually got a refund from Apple. I mean, he didn't have any evidence of of the loss. So he just kind of had to say it's gone. Like, I don't know what to say.
Yeah,
It's
it's
8,000 feet underground,
yeah 8,000 feet underground with everything
and
else.
pulverized by a pump, correct? Yeah, there's this.
That's like the best part because so it's not that it just gets sucked into this oil well and then it's just gone and that would be
Just
the end of
right.
it. No, the thing gets pulverized by this 4 inch stainless steel rod that's just completely massive. I mean, the thing probably weighs like 35, 40 pounds. Just smashes right into the phone, shattering it to little pieces. And there's four more
Just one
pistons.
rod? Oh, okay. There's four of them.
There's
Yeah,
five.
that's what I thought. Oh man. Yeah, it's gone. It's going to be, sand basically
The thing is pretty
by the
much
time
just
it turned. Yeah, wow, just particles. Wow. Yeah, I like that story. That was funny.
yeah. That's poor Troy. Yeah, he only had this phone for 3 days.
Um, yeah, rough times. Well, do you want to start talking about why schools don't teach about money? I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, we were talking about this after the wedding. We're at the airport, and somehow this got brought up. I guess we were just talking about things, and one of the things was about education and why schools don't teach money. So the only story that I have that links to it is from Robert Kiyosaki, and he's an interesting character. This guy, so he starts off as he lives on Hawaii. He's not real. He's well off in the sense of like upper middle class, but by no means wealthy. He eventually finds himself as I think he's working on like oil, like the oil containers that are floating all the way around the world. So all the different types of midstream connections. So if you're going from Saudi Arabia and you're going it over to the United States to transport oil, he's one of the officers manning the this cargo ship. Well, Vietnam War's on at this time, so then he starts going, "Oh, I can make extra money if I go to take this crazy oil carrier over to seas, over to the across the Pacific Ocean, then back to the United States." Well, he starts getting a little sorry for himself, and he's like, "Well, I probably should do my duty." So he ends up joining the Marine Corps instead. So he joins the Marine Corps. He flies airplanes. War's over in 1972. So he gets out of the Marines when his 4 years are up, and then he eventually is able to save up enough money and start buying property. But the real thing that made him one of the wealthiest guys is he, during like the mid 2000s, he started asking for a crazy amount of money to be able to invest in properties to pretty much set himself up for life. So what made him different was it must have been at least 3 years of him going back and forth to these big credit agencies because he's wanting like millions of dollars in terms of for investing. He eventually gets it, and guess what year it is? It's 2008. It's one of the worst financial years in history for the United States. Ruins a lot of businesses. The too big to fail thing comes up. This has been a problem for a long time. We still deal with this now. First time in history we see too big to fail really show up in spades. and we still have this problem right now. He uses that as a opportunity to get his loans. He gets his loans, takes over millions of dollars worth of property overnight that
Oh,
were now
yeah.
turned worthless.
That's perfect. This is like I actually see catastrophes like that. I don't know. I don't want to be I don't want to be like disingenuous, but I like even with COVID, and I'm going to be honest, I profited from COVID from investments.
A
And that
lot of
was
people did.
because yeah, I profited because people sold the stock market went down. I purchased and it went up again, very high. Um,
That's its own
and
conversation too, because of
it
what's been
is.
inflated in terms of the last 2 years. There's been a lot of stock pumping that's been going on,
Mhm.
which is actually not so good for other reasons that we can go into. But
Right,
Kiyosaki
but
now is jumping in, and he just gets tens of millions of dollars, and then now I think he's actually a billionaire. So hundreds of millions of dollars, billionaire, and he's just been off to the races ever since.
hmm.
That's his background.
So so Robert Kiyosaki, what did he what is how does what does that have to do with why schools don't teach money?
Yeah, so that's how it
Did he
started when he was a kid. He was asking like, "Why don't we learn about money?"
I
And
see.
his dad would tell him, "We're not allowed to. Like, it's not in the school's itinerary for learning." So he's still
And
confused.
you're saying this is purposeful.
Yeah,
This is intent.
I'd say so.
This is this is withholding knowledge from the general population for a purpose.
Yeah,
Yeah, I heard about this. Yeah,
it's for real.
that surprised me. And I actually thought about after our conversation, I thought about it. And I thought about my high school experience because that's when I first kind of got somewhat familiar with finance and just money in general. And I think everyone takes, civics and econ.
Lame
Econ,
class.
sorry.
It's a lame class. Just go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, I have nothing to compare it to, but well, I guess I compare it to college. But honestly, like they actually told us about the stock market, and they ran a simulator so we could invest stocks into the stock market without money, with credit, you know, monopoly money basically. Um, and we got to see like, okay, we put money in at the beginning of the semester and what happens at the end. I didn't do very well, by the way. Um, but and they didn't really teach us how to. I think the point was the stock market's volatile, not necessarily, you should be investing. Um, I have a feeling. I don't know if I saved my homework or from that class or any of the study guides or anything, but um, I'm pretty sure we talked about 401ks. We may have briefly covered it, but definitely like it was more of like you should do this, not how to do it or nothing like that. So at least I appreciate that they planted a seed, but didn't tell me how to grow it, if you know what that means, if you know what I mean. So, and I had to kind of grow it myself. I had to look for that knowledge. So, in a sense, if you didn't really care about 401ks or investing, then that seed wouldn't grow. It would stay there. But I actually was slightly interested in it. And one of the reasons was my brother, Joel, during his time when Joel and Jacob went to Wenatchee, a local high school in the town we grew up. Um, they had a project where I think it was econ class. They basically had this. They're basically put on this fair that sold food, and students would gather money from other students. The students in the class, my brother would gather money from other students, take investments, and then they would go buy food from like Taco Bell and things. And I think even they even made food. People even made food. And this is back in the like 2005. So there wasn't like it wasn't as like health conscious. during my time, they actually stopped doing that, and I was really
2005?
bummed.
No way. He graduated in
Uh,
'09.
okay, my math is awful. So graduate, okay, around '09. That's right. It must have been '07, '06, maybe. I don't know when you took econ. Maybe '07, '08, something like that.
Yeah, late
Because I think you take
2000s.
econ later. Yeah, yeah. So he asked me, Isaac, do you want to invest? And I was like, sure. I like, why not? Let's see what happens. I think I gave him, I feel like either gave him $20 or $40. I'm pretty sure it was $20. Gave him $20. At the end of the semester, he brought back, I think he brought back around $80 for me. And he said, this is what happened with your $20. And I was so shocked. I was like, there's no way. I expected maybe $25, $30, 40 at the most. But it was like, not two times, almost three times as much. And yeah, I was so surprised. I was like, this is awesome. I actually looked forward to doing that when I was a student. They didn't actually do that because of the health reasons. Students are making food, bringing it on campus, and then selling it. What happens if they make it wrong or don't cook the meat thoroughly?
Oh yeah,
But
regulations suck.
sure. So regulations started to hit it, and I can understand why, but I was still sad that they didn't do that because I wanted to make some money. But that still drove me to be interested in like economics and in college I took a finance class, and they actually went into more of the nitty gritty. And I actually really appreciate it, it's a professor at Biola University. He's doing some amazing things, and I talked to him about this topic, and he's looking to at least make financial, that's the word for it, financial not adequacy, but financial basics. Let's put it that way. He's trying to get a basic financial class required for a university that basically part of your GE. It's a little more complicated. He said it's pretty complicated to get classes added to GE, but I think every human that that plans on using any type of money needs to take a basic financial class so they know what a 401k, what are the difference between a 401k, a Roth IRA, um, the stock market, how to invest. Um, and that's actually where I took his class. We did another simulator for the stock market. I did okay. I think I profited. Wasn't anything too crazy, but um, and yeah, that's what kind of led me to like, I think I can do this on my own. And that's when I started to um, invest in the stock market. This is before I had a 401k because I didn't have a professional job that offered a 401k. I think you can get a 401k without a job, but I was waiting for a job to happen first. So yeah, that's my financial literacy. But yes, I agree. This is something that they should definitely teach in school more.
100%.
What
I
are your
mean,
thoughts?
yeah, 100%. Why are we stopping people from getting something that's so basic? And personally, I think it's somewhat insidious, but I think it's mainly regulation that stops it. So, like what you said, it takes forever to get a class through. Yeah, I get
Hmm.
approval X, approval Y, someone that I don't care about A, someone else in manager B. It just adds up. It really adds up. And manufacturing's got similar problems. I got to get 5 signatures for just putting in maybe 2 grand worth of parts that's going to be installed on a new line because of approval processes. Everyone needs to be able
2000,
to.
that's 2000's not much,
Two
especially when
grand
you're
ain't
talking about
nothing.
industrial equipment. Yeah, that's like almost $2, basically.
It
You
can be
know,
expensed
yeah,
overnight.
that's yeah. And especially right now, I'm working for a university that's tied on cash. We're going through similar circumstances where we have to get not only the dean involved, but also the CFO. has to of the university. There's like there's like 8,000 employees. So anytime a manager wants to get our credit cards that we had on, by the way, I love Biola. I'm just saying that they had to really tighten down their spending, their cash flow. And I understand why they did it, but it made it difficult because we had a company card that you can go use to um, if you have a truck, a company truck, you have to go, buy gasoline. You can't do that with a company card. You have to get signatures, which may take 4 or 5 days before you can go buy gas for a truck that you use to work. So it's getting a lot better, but that's what it was. And I'm sure a lot of companies went through this similar circumstances because of COVID and businesses shutting down and spending has to be tightened. So
Yeah, it's a normal thing, but the layers of approval is where it starts to get a little cumbersome. Like the CFO, for example. I mean, good grief. That's something similar with us. If you go like above like 150 grand in some industries, you'll need to get the CFO involved, and make sure they have their wet signature on the page, along with I don't know 5 to 10 other subordinates that are below them, which it gets to be a lot of verifies to the verify to the verify. Um,
yeah,
it wasn't that long ago
yeah.
where that kind of approval process wasn't a thing.
Hmm.
But to be clear, if you don't have it at all, you're going to find yourself with, well, why did they buy blank? And it's like completely useless. Okay, we've got wasted money going to projects that people think were important, but then they bought the wrong thing and then no one checked them on it. So I get the concept of a verify system. The question is how much. But back to what we were talking about with Robert Kiyosaki, because this guy actually isn't really a stock market kind of dude.
Hmm.
He's more of a non-duplicable assets kind of guy. So what that means is he's more into real estate. He's more into actual things. You hold gold. You hold something along the lines of a property, an estate, a hotel, a house, that kind of thing.
Physical assets. Yeah.
Physical assets, because he's more concerned about cash flow. So his book, he's got something on cash flow, and he even made like a board game of something in the '90s called I don't know if it's called Cash Flow, but
It wasn't Monopoly, was it?
no, he
It
didn't
sure
make
sounds like.
Monopoly.
Okay.
Dude, Monopoly's way
I didn't
older
think
than
so.
he is.
No, I know. I'm just joking. It's Parker Brothers, I think, but
Yeah, and
something like that.
it's funny you bring up Monopoly because he's got a book called Rich Dad Poor Dad, and in the
Uh-huh.
book, the rich dad lets him play Monopoly with him, and for a while he's getting frustrated. He's like, "Why are we playing Monopoly?" That the rich dad's trying to tell him, like that's how you do it. You get properties, you get 4 greenhouses, 1 red hotel. You eventually stack it up to the point where someone lands on it. You really get some cash flow. That's what matters. It's not the quantity of money. It's where how much money per month are you getting. So quantity doesn't mean jack. The question is, what are your assets doing for you? And he actually has a really good and healthy understanding of real
Interesting.
estate, because most people
Interesting.
think
Yeah.
they're going to buy their house and then that's it. Well, he's like, you got to understand, your house isn't an investment, it's a liability. You have to put money into it. It's your house. It's not an investment unless someone else is living in it and then you're getting the money. You see the problem?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
when I
I
heard him say that, I go, ooh, now that is something you don't hear most people say. So having a
yes.
bigger house, that's actually a liability. But if you
Yes.
use it to rent it out, or you rent part of it out, which is definitely something that's in my future, I want to be able to have a little, like one person can live there. And it's like, I live next to a university, it's close by. That would be cool because then you could cycle good tenants and
Hmm.
always have some level of cash flow to help out with the mortgage. And then, all right, cool. Now I have an asset, you see, because there is some level of cash flow that's coming back. He also talks about how money is debt. He says in 1971, when Nixon took us off the gold standard, the money that you save is not backed by anything. So you need, in order to get more of it, you got to be putting it somewhere. You have to be using it. So for the last 50 years, that's probably where you saw a lot of people going nuts on credit cards and stuff. Most likely, it's because it's been installed into people so much that people don't even think twice about it. But saving is still important though, because how do you get your assets without saving? You need to hold on to it somehow for some medium term time. Like for me, saving in my 20s, 100% important. That's how you're going to get your first investment to start the cash flow process that's outside of the workforce pretty much. So he's just saying like don't be saving altogether for everything you're doing. You need to be putting your money to work. It needs to be going into places. And I totally get that idea, but he is totally against the 401k thing because he's like you're putting it all into the stock market hoping the stock market's going to go up. That thing blows up every so often. And he's right.
It does. He's right. Yeah.
However, and this is something that most people don't really, they'll disregard that advice because, well, they need to put their money to work. So, what better and convenient way to do it than through like a
Well,
401k because your company already offers it? That makes sense.
yes.
And for most people, that's a decent idea. I could see though, and this is probably going to be something that may happen to our generation. I could see this is something that I predict that could go wrong with the millennials, which you and me are. I could
Yes.
see the people before us, so that like the next couple generations after us, looking at us being like those greedy sons of guns that have their 401ks because they got told to put it in early, and now they're screwing up the stock market because all of them are pulling it out at once. So personally, I could see that being a big problem in terms of rocking the boat.
You're talking about financial, I need to create a word for this. Financial advocacy, almost where people use finances to advocate for what they want. For instance, I'm sure you've heard about this.
I have.
Um, yeah, you already know. GameStop and AMC networks. Did you hear about that? Where people, I guess people bet against AMC and GameStop during the pandemic, especially like and for good reasons. Uh, AMC for obvious reasons, the theater, and no one's going to the theater. GameStop, I think it was just declining. And if you take a look at the stock, it just kept getting lower and lower. Large hedge funds, that's a word that needs to be defined. Um, and I don't know if I can provide an adequate definition, but large hedge funds bet against it. And I think there was one guy, but there was a group of people on Reddit in particular that were like, hey, I don't, I think one of the guys was like, hey, I don't think, like, I actually think GameStop's a good company. Like, I think their value is much more than what these people are betting against it, much higher. And I think the guy saw that, if it continues down the current path, even though they're valued high, these large hedge fund companies will end up, just tanking GameStop. And so what they did was they all got together and like, we're gonna buy GameStop, and I don't know how many people actually participated in it, but it was definitely enough to rock the boat and increase the price of GameStop. The thing about the short that the company is a short, it's betting against the stock, saying, I think the stock will go down, and they have a certain period of time, and there's a word for it. I didn't research this before. There's a certain period of time they have, and at the end of that time period, once it's over, and that stock is lower than what the initial, than what I guess lower than what they um, lower than what they initially said, like, hey, I think it's going to go lower, and it actually went lower. If that time period expires, then they make money off of it. But if the stock increases over that time period and the time period expires, then they have to pay uh, the stockbroker basically. a
Bad bit
lot
of
of money.
business.
Yes. So yeah, that's the thing. It's very risky because if the stock happens to increase, all of these hedge funds will lose a whole lot of money. And that's what happened. Um,
David versus Goliath
so
in the stock forum.
that's an that's interesting that you mentioned because I immediately thought of that circumstance. When did that happen? That happened this year or 2019? I forget. Um,
Nah, it was during the pandemic, all right. I
Regardless,
think it was
yeah,
21.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You're right. Sorry, 21. Um, but it's interesting that I don't know how often that happens.
Not
I think it
often.
does happen, but nothing to that scale. Because I know people bet against the stock, and sometimes the stock increases for one reason or another, and they lose their short. But you're right in expecting it to happen again, and even to a larger scale. Especially, I can see that happening now that you mentioned it. I can see that happening to like a general population. What if it could be the U.S. a certain amount of the U.S. population pulls it off, where they cause people's 401ks to plummet. It I wonder if it also could be a tactic of a foreign country. I'm curious about that. If because you have obviously like the traditional warfare, physical, and then you also have the cyber warfare. Um, but I wonder if financial warfare is another tactic, which I have actually never considered. I wonder if that's possible. Something to look into.
It's probably happening as we speak. It's just
I'm
probably
sure it is.
it's pretty subtle. It also
Right.
doesn't necessarily affect us directly, which makes it hard to pinpoint, hard to see. But the main thing that I was getting at before is I could see the millennial generation being hated because now it's time for them to pretty much get their retirement savings in terms of cash flow. And if everyone's taking out money at the same time at the same rate, let's say it's like 1 million people, 5 million people are cashing in, but it's not all at once. It's a slow sell, right? Because again,
Sure, sure.
it's about cash flow because you don't want to sell it all at once. Smart or
Right.
that's the smartest thing you can do is do it in chunks.
Well,
So,
that's how typically I've heard about this. That's how typically companies like Fidelity Investments, think about the common investment companies. That's how they do it. They don't want to make the market just plummet, because it could affect other investors. It could affect their own investments. Maybe they have multiple accounts, so they slowly drain their accounts over a course of a month, maybe 2 or 3 months, so that it doesn't cause a plummet. They want to spook anyone and cause the market to just plummet for no reason. They have other accounts that probably maybe they want to stay in that same investment category. So yeah, it's exactly. They have to do it slowly. But your point is, there's going to be a lot of us millennials that will draw our accounts in the future. Now, I don't know. Now, obviously, like there's a large population of baby boomers, for the obvious reason. I'm not sure how we compare to baby boomers in terms of like our population.
it's not about
Um,
population on this one. It's about people got told 401ks were a thing to do, and it's people that bought into it in their 20s.
yeah,
So that's the
yeah.
thing. Where with the baby boomers, 401k, I don't think that came out until
You know,
I think that came out a lot later than when they were in high school and college. We
yeah,
came in, 401ks are the standard. Pensions are
yeah,
gone unless you're in the government. And 401k is pretty much being sold as this is going to be paying your own retirement. And everyone
right.
always likes to glorify retirement, which as a Christian, makes me kind of cringe a little bit because
Yes.
it really
There's no
does.
such thing as retirement. And we're always, as Christians, we're always on the clock. We're always, our lifestyle doesn't change depending on our career or our uh, the day of the week. It shouldn't anyway.
We got
But
purpose that people just don't understand, and the purpose will change only, or I said the job will change, but the purpose won't. So it's just shifting the hours around, shifting priorities around. But at the end of the day, the same purpose is in there,
oof,
and
yes,
that's something that people just don't understand. And I think their idea of retirement is I'm going to get myself out of this burdensome moment I'm in, and then just sit on a beach somewhere and like have a martini or something. And once you're bored with that after like 12 days, you'll probably want to do something else. And I've heard of people who actually die in retirement faster because their purpose has been drained out of them and their body just kind of knows it's time to give up.
it's
And
no purpose.
that's one of the main reasons why I'm glad we're talking about the money in schools thing, because we need to educate, and I say as a society needs to find a way to talk about money in a healthy way, not about
Exactly.
in a neutral fashion, not too much, not too little. There's a proverb that says, God give me enough so that I don't steal, but also
Ah,
don't give me
yes,
too much where I say, who is God? Um,
yes,
so talking about it in a neutral way is so that way it can be helpful. Your savings, your earnings could be put to good use, and it doesn't corrupt you. So like when you get the money, it's not like corrupting you. It's just money to you. It's resources. It may be no different than just anything else that you would consider as a resource, which is a good way to think of it. Because money
hmm
as a god is terrible. Because when you need it to do something for you and it won't, you're pretty screwed. It's just going to kind of stare back at you, and then you realize the mirror you were looking at, which is kind of a horrifying thought now that I'm talking about it. Um, so
yes.
the money in
I have the
schools thing.
Proverbs.
Oh, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Uh-huh. I have the Proverbs here. It's actually really good. Two things it's Proverbs 30, verse 7. Two things I ask of you, Lord. Do not refuse me before I die. Keep falsehood and lies far from me. Give me neither poverty nor riches, but give me only my daily bread. Otherwise, I may have too much and disown you and say, who is the Lord? Or I may become poor and still and dishonor the name of my God. So you're right. It's a balance.
And that balance isn't taught very well in America because we like big stuff. We like the American culture is give me as much as I possibly can fit into my house. And I think a lot of people though are waking up to that might not be the right idea. At least the rate at which people are waking up to it. I think there's some people that are thinking maybe that's not the best idea, especially like with pandemic, right? Why do I have to have all of this money when all of a sudden inflation hits and now it's 5%? What was the point of it? Probably need to put it to good use. It needs to be doing something. So that's where the financial advice would be really handy. But I think our school system is designed more for like I'm going to create as many lower to middle class jobs as possible by showing people how to do clerical work and how to pretty much integrate into an office environment within 2 days, because you're trained over and over and over again how to do worksheets, trained over and over again about writing, reading, math. And I'm over here like, okay, what are the bare minimum requirements to run an office?
Right, emails?
Write emails,
It's
make up
awful.
designs, do meetings, schedule it, and
Yeah,
then
you're
probably do
right.
some kind of a low level arithmetic.
You're right. Yeah.
So after looking at it that way, it's actually been kind of embarrassing because I worked really hard in university, and I'm going, crap, was that what was I supposed to do something different? But the good news is there's a lot of good jobs that you can use those skills in no matter where you go, and I think that's the vast majority. It's just I think they've put that as the pinnacle, and I think that's wrong. I think
Yeah.
they need to branch out a little bit in terms of how to educate kids. Finland, so I've heard about their education system,
hmm
and I've heard it's some of the best in the world. And I've actually got two Finnish friends, and they're a Finnish family that were in Porterville for a time, and they told me about it. And I was like, huh, maybe I should listen to them. And I heard them out. They aren't doing nearly the same amount of hours in terms of work. They're cutting the worksheets back a lot. They do way more playtime. Their innovation is through the roof, and I think it's because they've found a way to keep the child interested, the class interested, showing them purpose, and showing that they actually have a lot of talent, and being able to navigate through that said talent is not through a textbook manner. I think the textbook is it's a skill, but it's not the skill. And I think that's where Finland does it best. It's not just about textbooks and reading and worksheets, which is very Cartesian, very do it this way, cut this way. Instead, it's you have your decision to get through the objective. Here's some tools for you, figure it out. And eventually, kids find a way to make it convenient for them, but then eventually they develop more and more complex tools and complex strategies. But you gotta just let them do a lot of the work instead of making the paved road that is over and over and over again, fill this out, fill this out, fill this out, fill this out. And I look back at my school days and I go, oh my goodness, if I ever had kids, would I want them to do that same level of learning? And the answer is absolutely not. No, I think I'd rather have them have the internet and be with a bunch of homeschoolers instead, because I think they'll have a better
Yeah.
time. I think they'll have a really good
Yeah.
childhood.
Yes. Did you know, I heard a statistic here that public school teachers don't put their kids in public school because they know it's not good for them. In fact, they will put their kids in private schools. You
Yeah,
can
it's a
go
lot of dough
look it
though.
up.
Yeah, it's
I
just a
didn't.
lot of dough for private
It
schools, and
is a
that's
lot of dough. It is a lot, but you can look up the statistic. I didn't plan on talking about this, but
don't worry, I'll
yeah,
find the
it's
links,
it's
post
a
them
thing
below.
where people that teach in education don't even put their own children in the school that they teach in. Um, uh, yeah, it's I actually didn't know that, and I was like, oof, that's revealing. We've got a problem with our education.
Yeah, why do we have a
Um,
lot of kids that want to run away from school? Like that to me tells me something's wrong with the system. Now, granted, there is some level of you have a duty, you should follow
yes,
it. And that's what we
yes,
did. That's what we did with school. We weren't trying to be
yeah,
troublemakers or anything.
and
We
in some ways it helped, but it definitely it has a lot of flaws. Um, I actually like the Finland example, right? It's Finland.
yeah.
Yeah. How you said that they don't get shown like this is exactly how this is the procedure, you do this and this and this. You actually this is what needs to happen and here are the tools and you go do it. That actually is interesting because I believe that promotes self-efficacy. Um, that that and that's a term I learned when I took let's see if I can remember the course name. This was a course at Biola University, and I took it's a business class. It's called behavioral. Let's see. Ooh, organizational behavior. That's the course name. Um, but one of the things was learning about what motivates employees. Um, and you went over the common motivational factors. Obviously, money is one, power is another, prestige. But what they learned, they did a few like an analysis of what motivates people, and they found that self it's a balance between some. You obviously can't just rely on prestige and get paid no money. You need to earn money. You have to provide for yourself. But out of all the categories, self efficacy was found to be one of the most important factors of what motivates people. Because if you get stuck in a job where you get paid, wages that are okay, um, and but if the job you do doesn't actually like help you improve yourself, um, think about like assembly lines or um, you know, truck drivers. Truck drivers, though, I don't know if that qualifies because you can learn a lot from you get to see a
Here,
lot at
let's
least. You get
qualify.
changing environment.
We can
But
qualify. So
yeah,
it's not just about the truck drivers, because I would say some of them are some of the best in terms of like they can throw on
exactly.
podcasts and then they're driving. I mean, you might have a 6 foot flatbed, 80,000 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lot of skill that's involved in making sure you don't hit anything. But I know what you're getting at. What you're getting at is
Right.
the job
More
that's
like
the
menial
same
work.
thing, menial work.
Yes.
It's the same thing over and over again. But
Yes. Not to harp on truck drivers. I think truck drivers are awesome. And
but I
it
get
takes a
what
lot
the
of
point of
skill
it.
to load those trucks. But continue.
Yeah, like forklifts and stuff, and which that has its own level of skill too, with knowing your spacing and knowing how you're gonna position and the like.
Yeah.
But what you were getting at is the menial same thing over and over again. I've hit my
Yes.
plateau. There's no room left to now pull yourself up to the next level, whatever that level may be, because there's always some level to achieve. There's something to look
Right.
forward to. So the assembly
Correct.
line ones make sense if you stay at the same position, but you can
Hmm.
change that by simply, I need you in a different sector of the plant. And then
Hmm.
now you're learning another part. Oh, I need you in another
Exactly.
sector of the plant. And if you rotate enough, you may find yourself learning the entire plant. And now that's interesting because
Yes.
that
And
gives you a position to now negotiate. Hey, I've worked in all sides of the plant. I can tell you some problems that we could fix, and then maybe you can do what a lot of people did, which is work their way from the ground up. And now
hmm
they are some of the leaders that are within
hmm
that assembly line.
fun fact for you about assembly line work, factory work. I got a job at Amazon for a month during the pandemic.
Hey, no kidding.
Yes, yes, no kidding. Probably one of the, yeah, it was, I actually always was interested in getting an idea of how Amazon worked from the inside. And I was like, I want to give this a try. I needed work. I was furloughed at Disney, and I was like, I'm gonna give a swing at Amazon. See, and I think they were paying $15 an hour, which is not much in Southern California. Um, but I was like, I'm gonna give it a try. I was applying left and right for work, so I knew eventually I'd find work, and I did after a month. But I worked there for a month, and I started in a menial like it's basically a sorting facility. And if you don't know, Amazon delivers packages basically two ways. I'm sure there's more, but with their own Amazon fulfilled uh, delivery drivers, and I'm sure you've seen that. And then they also have through the postal service, and they use the postal service where they can't deliver through their own fulfillment network. And so all those packages that need to be delivered to the post offices here in Southern California go to this one facility called LEX5, and that's located actually pretty near here. And I'm centrally located in Southern California between Orange and Los Angeles, so it's actually it's down the street here. But LEX5, all the packages come from all the fulfillment centers. I think there's one in San Bernardino and there's one in Irvine. They come to this facility, and what we do is we take all those packages, we sort them based off of the post office location. So there's actually, I remember wrapping a pallet going to La Mirada, which is this town here that I'm living in. These pallets. So basically, all the packages get onto pallets. Pallets go to the post office. Post office delivers packages. All that to say, um, there's actually a lot of steps involved to sorting packages. I think there was at least let's see, I'm trying to count all the positions. You start off as basically a pallet stacker, which all the packages come off the line. They have the tag on it has the location where it's supposed to go to. You know what? Kicks and giggles. All these right here. Oh no. Let's see if I can unblur this here. I'm just actually it's kind of cool. So my room's a mess though. It's been a crazy week. I had to work from home today. Um, let's turn that off. So right here you have all these different QR codes.
I
Get
see
it
him
back
enough.
around.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, QR codes here. And each one has a letter that's highlighted in black, and then you have more digits after that. So BOI2 is actually a location. ONT is Ontario. There's Ontario 5, Ontario 1, I don't know what that stands for. You can probably look it up and find the location. It's an acronym. And then the digits below it, ONT5, that is basically the factory line. So O is there's probably letters inside the sort facility from A to Z. O is one of the letters, so it goes on that line, and then it gets subdivided by N, T, and 5, and this follows basically in sequence from left to right the location. So it starts at BOI, then ONT, and this basically goes from BOI basically and then to a pallet ONT5, and that gets delivered to ONT5. ONT5 goes to G001, and then that pallet goes to ONT1, and then A008, and then you have DCX8. DCX8, I believe, is like DCX8. That is our local delivery location here in La Mirada. It's a building that has a whole bunch of trucks, and all the packages go to DCX8. That's actually basically where the 5 freeway and the 91 freeway that intersects. There's a building right there, and that's DCX8. So you kind of get an idea. But ours would say LAX5 at the very end, and then it goes to the post office. And occasionally I see them. But what we do is you scan either, let's see, scan either these barcodes, let's see, or this barcode. Um, and it doesn't matter. These are all the same. They're just rotated. These four codes, QR codes, are all the same, and this barcode is also the same. There used to be my memory is a little fuzzy. There used to be a barcode down here, and they changed it during when I was working. They decided to use QR codes, and so what we did was we had a scanner. We'd scan either the QR code or the barcode. You had your choice. I guess different equipment can scan different codes. And then you would scan the palette. So the palette would be maybe one of these characters, A008. And you would have 6 pallets that you would be in charge of. This is during COVID. 6 pallets. And each pallet would be A00, 1 through A006. Something like that. And you would scan it onto the pallet, scan the package, scan the pallet. It would beep at you saying, good to go. You set it on the pallet, and you just stack packages for 6 hours until the pallet gets 72 inches high, which is about my height. Actually, I think it's 77. I'm 77 inches, so 6 feet 5, basically. Stack it till basically my eyes can't see over the top, and then you wrap it with shrink wrap, and someone comes, picks it up, puts it in the right lane, and that lane basically is a loading dock, and that loading dock goes to the post office that gets loaded on the truck. So you had packages large, small, and you've purchased Amazon packages. You've seen the Jiffy kind of mailers. You've seen huge packages, and we got them all. And Yeah, it was pretty crazy. But I'm really going a rabbit trail here. But I thought it was fascinating how Amazon worked. The whole point of this is there's a lot of different tasks at Amazon that you can do. And I started just by stacking pallets, and then I moved on to running pallets, which I walked 6 miles a day, um, doing the circuit of moving a pallet to its loading dock. I did basically a chute sorter where there's a chute that comes out in front of you. You take the package, you put it on another chute. You have 4 chutes on the side, one large chute in the center. You take a package off the center and put it on the side. That corresponds with the letter that I showed you. And you have all kinds. I think if I were to count, there's 7 different. And I got up pretty far in 1 month, and I actually enjoyed it, but definitely I started getting a little bored after I got all these done. And I was like, all right, what's next? I'm ready. Like I've conquered all of these things. I can If you don't know about Amazon, they keep track of your rate. You have to stack 100 and see what was the rate? 150 packages on a pallet. You have to scan it in less than 15 minutes. So pretty sure 150 was my rate. 150 was the baseline. That's the lowest you want to be. If you're lower than that, you're not good. Um, it's been a while. Let's see. Oh,
I didn't even know all this. This is cool.
it's been 1 year since I left Amazon, so I'm sure things are fuzzy. Obviously, if somebody worked there, they can tell me if I'm wrong or right. I think it was 150. Honestly, that kind of sounds a little low, but the higher you get, the better. And each position has a rate, except for positions that they just can't. You just don't have a scanner. But usually, a lot of stuff you do is with this computer, handheld computer, and that's basically your manager. That's your manager looking over your shoulder at everything you do is a computer, and that keeps
Wow.
track. And it's actually really smart. Honestly, if I had to design a warehouse and make sure that employees kept on task, I'd probably do the same thing. I mean, um, they keep track of the rate, and they can look up your account and see how you're doing. And say, hey, like I noticed that you're declining, or I noticed that you're not growing. Is there something we can do to help you? So, but they make you work for 6 hours. It was like, all right, ready, set, go. All right, the belt started, and you know, run. But no, didn't run. But basically, it felt like a marathon of just like, all right, boom, 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 you speed. And there's a reason why that you have to work that fast, and they have to keep, you on track because they have to deliver that package in less than a day right now. Some of them anyway, less than a day. So yes, there's a value in self-efficacy, and there is some businesses that don't provide that. Um, Now, I didn't get very far up the chain. I kind of stayed within the position I was hired for. Although I moved around the different tasks that were available. But if I stayed there longer, I'm not sure. I don't think I would be happy, to be honest. I think my talent would be wasted. Not not to say that I'm boasting in my talent. I'm just saying I have other skills that aren't being used. I have experiences that aren't being used that I could put to use.
Yeah, you're
Would be
using your secondary
useful.
skills way more than your primary. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And yeah, so I think it was a good experience, even though it's definitely, wasn't what I planned to do. Didn't plan on working at Amazon after I graduated for $15 an hour, but I think it was a good experience. Humbling. A lot of people that had lost their jobs, graphic designers, programmers, college students needed work. A lot of people from a lot of places, a lot of different cultures. It's actually, yeah, I enjoyed the diversity and the people that were there, relationships I made for 1 month, unfortunately, although the turnover is quite high.
Well,
It's
yeah.
high.
Look at
It's
you.
so high. Well, yeah, obviously, but it's so high that you'll make friends with people and then they'll be gone um, within a month or less. And that was like, and talking the relationships I made, everybody didn't plan on staying. It was more of like a temporary thing. Um, and Amazon honestly knew that, and they made their training kind of uh, they had that in mind. Yeah, like train you as fast as you can, like 1 day, and then go. Um, Amazon.
Yeah, that's what the big companies do.
Hmm.
They actually really like training programs because they know the more effective it can be. If they can't beat the turnover, they have to get ahead of it through training. So
Yeah.
Mickey D's does that. Amazon for sure does that. I
Oh
could
yeah.
even say one of my old companies in oil did that. Um,
Hmm. I'm sure that involved a lot of training, but they tried to get it done as quickly as possible. You
well,
got the deal.
so they were smarter about it though because they knew they were getting people in that were going to be doing some complex work to some degree. So they always had something for you to learn. There's always some module you had to do, some project you had to do. Uh, you're working on multiple frac sites. You're working on different things. So they actually kept you rather active too, but they're pretty much getting you ready for that next level. And regardless if you leave or you stay, the point is that you're always going to have some level of value that's coming into the company. Pretty smart, actually, because then when I went to other companies, I'm like, oh, you guys don't nearly have the same system as some of these bigger corps. And some of them are coming from like humbler backgrounds, like they're just used to trying to keep the plant running. But
Not trying to streamline it. They're just trying to
yeah.
survive.
Well, even if they
Yeah.
say streamline, I'm like, nah, you don't know the definition of streamline. You don't know, like, because if you've never worked for something like a Schlumberger or a Halliburton or some of these companies that are just so rock solid, they know what they're doing, and they could lay off so many people like that, and they can still survive, and then get more efficient afterward. You got to have some respect for how they can still navigate through. And I remember one time someone it was one of the recruiters. They were saying Schlumberger works in more places than McDonald's does in terms of countries. So that was one of those crazy moments of wow, they're in a lot of countries. It's like fair enough. We need oil everywhere. So
Yeah.
yeah, the bigger companies, they really try and get ahead of the game. If they can't fix the turnover, they will get more efficient by fixing the training.